Good afternoon, everyone. This is Reyes Ramirez with Fresh Arts. Hope you've been well. Hope you've been safe. So welcome to our digital online workshop series. Fundraise, and then this particular session, it's a really great session. It's going to be fundraising in the arts during times of crisis. So if you've never tuned in before, if this is your first time, Fresh Arts is a arts nonprofit organization that offers resources to artists, and we're particularly located within Houston. Our online resources, such as this one, are available to anyone. And we also have a website that you can visit, fresharts.org. That's plenty of other digital free resources that you can check out. And if you have been here before, welcome back. Hope you've been well. And I hope you're ready for another great discussion and another great session with people that we particularly look out for, that we think have a really great viewpoint or information that can help creatives during times of crisis, and in particular the COVID-19 crisis. And so today we're joined by special guest Amy Lampi. Before we get to her, let me read her bio just so you know that the cred is real. So Amy Lampi is an associate vice president at BWF with more than 18 years of fundraising experience in the performing arts, education, and healthcare. As a generalist, she has a wide range of experience from gift processing and database administration to major gifts and the management of a development team. Prior to BWF, Amy served as a director of development at Theater Under the Stars, where she oversaw all fundraising aspects of the theater, including board, individual, corporate, and foundation giving, capital campaign and major gifts, special events, prospect research, development operations, and gift processing. Amy also served as the Associate Director of Development at the Alley Theater, where her cutting-edge work in fundraising analytics with Josh Burkholz of BWF was featured in the August 2016 issue of the Chronicle Philanthropy. And BWF, they are an organization that is committed to supporting their communities during this time of uncertainty by developing information, resources, and services to ensure continued sustainability and success. So without further ado, Amy Lampi.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be joining y'all today. As mentioned, I am a fundraising consultant. Prior to that, I have spent my career fundraising with an emphasis on the arts. And so my passion is for the arts and culture sector. And so I've now, as a fundraising consultant, my focus is helping arts and culture organizations fundraise. And so I'm so excited to be here today to talk about some themes that I've seen in our space and talking to colleagues across the nation. I'm so glad to be partnering with Fresh Arts and my dear friend Marcy Dallas, and just how this is an important time for us to all come together to support each other. And I'm so glad to be here. So thank you. What we're going to be talking about today is these things that we've been seeing over and over again in the arts and culture space, and things to remind us of how we can move forward. So you had our welcome, but I also wanted to let you know that this is beyond a webinar. This is also an opportunity for community conversation. So please take this time to we're going to talk about successes, challenges, innovations, and just ways that we can partner together and share. So please make use of the live comments on Facebook Live. And we are going to have a time at the end where we're going to have a Q&A. So please, this is meant to be a conversation beyond a webinar. We also have a lot of other webinars coming up. In particular, we have a Let's Talk, which is more of a roundtable session with my colleague, Alex Aftelli, who is head of our data science division. So I'm going to talk about the art of fundraising. He's going to talk about the science of fundraising. But this is for people in our arts and culture sector. So we had a great first session. This is our second session, and it's arts organizations across the country, from museums to operas to theaters across. So please feel free to join us. This is open to the public, coming up on May 27th. So there's been several themes that have come up as we've talked about the arts. And in particular, I wanted to just go through our agenda. It's based upon an article that I recently wrote for BWF on courageous creativity. So what we're going to do is go through what courageous creativity means in this space in terms of fundraising. I'm going to give some examples of some courageous creativity I've seen in the art space. So hopefully that you'll have some take homes. That's also one thing that I want to make sure you have is practical advice that you can take back to your shops or to your individual organizations, or if you are an individual artist yourself, that you can take these points with you. We're going to talk about donor engagement. We're going to talk about infrastructure, and then we're going to leave time for a Q&A. So this is the recent article that I spoke about. There's a direct link to the article if you'd like to read the whole thing, but it's about courageous creativity. And what it is it's really, these are the big themes that I've been seeing today, because there's been a lot of fear around us being able to approach donors. And what do we do in this space? This has been a major time of disruption for our space. Because we cannot convene. So what do we do now? What do we do in the present? And then what do we look at doing post-COVID? So the first theme that I was seeing and talking to our friends in the arts and culture space is a need for courage. And when we talk about courage, it's really in the aspect of not being afraid to contact your donors. Trust me, they all want to hear from you right now. If they've given to your organization, they've given you a vote of confidence that they believe in you and they want you to be here. So please reach out to your donors. This is a really important time to do that. So you'll see what makes up courage. So a couple of things that make up courage are, fearlessness. There's really no room for fear in fundraising right now. Fear is one of the most powerful of human emotions. Some fears we have are instinctual and keep us safe from danger, like staying safe amidst a global pandemic. So we understand that fear for our own safety right now. Other fears are not good for us, and they inhibit our growth professionally and can keep us from connecting to donors right now. So it's hard for us as fundraisers or as artists or fundraising artists, as I like to call ourselves, to escape that fear right now, but we can learn to manage it. We can stand up in front of it with courage. Donors want to connect with us and our organizations, so please don't let fear convince you otherwise. What I learned from fundraising during the 2008 recession and post-Hurricane Harvey is that our profession and the nonprofits, we are resilient. But it does take fearlessness and resilience. And in both instances, the teams that I worked with, the development teams from a small education nonprofit to a medium-sized performing arts institution, we had to quickly adapt our funding sources. We had to recalibrate those contributed revenue streams for the organizations. And then but if we were to, during those times, have let fear become the motivating factor in our work, it would have kept us from taking risks as fundraisers. So I think it's very important for you to look to the past to see how did we survive these other episodic challenges. So look at how you positioned yourself during Hurricane Harvey, or your organization did. Look how you survived the 2008 recession. If anything, we're resilient. We're resilient as Houstonians. We are resilient as a city, and we are here to support each other. So don't let fear be a motivating factor for you. The next theme I was seeing was perseverance, is that we're running a fundraising marathon right now. So pace yourself so you don't burn out. Use this time to this intermission, as I've been hearing it and calling it, as an opportunity to motivate, cultivate, and steward your board members, volunteers, and donors. Encourage them to run this race alongside you. Share your reforecasted goals with board members and with leadership partnership to engage new donors with a challenge match, or to get on the phone to encourage donors to support your mission. It's critical that board and executive leadership endure with development during this time by investing in fundraising resources. This is very critical, instead of eliminating them. If anything, you have to preserve fundraising, or it will be so much harder for you or your organization to ramp up. So we need to come from a growth, come into this and continue in this with a growth mentality instead of a scarcity mentality. It gives us an opportunity to invest into fundraising and really take the time to make it a priority. Positivity. So we need to take this time to encourage and uplift our colleagues in the field, and encourage each other to keep striving ahead in confidence and positivity. It's so easy to get discouraged right now. So we must take time to applaud each other and say brava or bravo. What you do is important and incredibly essential, and you deserve to exist and be in this space right now. And so I think we need to take that time to intentionally encourage and be positive. One example is like next time that you have a virtual meeting with a donor or your colleagues, or with a staff member, or with a funder, make an active decision to be positive and having a positive outlook, even if it feels uncertain to you. And even if you don't know they're heading, because I know I feel it too. We go week by week and then month by month. And though we can't necessarily see the future right now, we have to remain positive. But once you use that positivity, see how that affects the conversation. Because that's what donors want right now, is they want positivity. They crave positivity. They want artistry. So I want, if anything, walk away from this webinar knowing and feeling and being empowered that you deserve to be heard with your donors, and that you are valued, and that donors want art and crave art. Humanity needs art right now because we can't convene. So the next theme I saw that is so important and is really exciting for me as a fundraising innovator is the idea of creativity. And that, as creativity, it's so important. We need to look at ourselves. Maybe you identify yourself primarily as an artist, or maybe you're on this call and this webinar and you identify yourself as a fundraiser. But this is we're at a time where there needs to be a marriage between the two, of us looking at ourselves as fundraising artists. There is an art to fundraising. This is an artistry. And so walk down center stage and shine as the fundraising artist that you are. So this is a great time to understand and and embrace fundraising if that's been uncomfortable for you. And this is a wonderful time for fundraisers to embrace the artistry and the creativity that thrives as fundraisers, and that it's our time to shine as fundraisers. So as fundraisers, it's easy to assume, I'll take, for example, though I started my career as an actor, I quickly became a fundraiser. I tried to balance both at the beginning of my career, and it was way too hard to try to do both. So I chose the path of fundraising. But I've always carried the basis of being an actor with the way that I approach fundraising as a performer. And it's often easy as a fundraiser to assume that creativity is reserved for the artists, the artistic team, the creators, teaching artists, graphic designers in our field. But creativity belongs to the fundraiser as well. On the flip side, if you're an artist, you too can be a fundraiser. And it is more important than ever to feel empowered that you can be a fundraiser, because there is artistry behind fundraising. Times of distraction, fundraisers permission to be more creative and innovative than usual. And so it gives the opportunity to implement and invent ideas and create efficiencies that may be long overdue. Some things to consider are creative donor relations or stewardship strategies to steward those who donated tickets back to your organization. How are you going to take care of those folks that donated tickets back? Have you even talked about canceling a performance or a showing that where tickets were involved? And talk to your donors about that, about looking at it as a full tax deductible donation and then thanking them for their donation. Now, what are your strategies of how you're dealing with those particular ticket buyers versus people who are giving straight donations? Now is a great time to use data to drive innovative decisions. One of my personal favorite things to do. And think about some things are thinking about cleaning or restructuring your database if you have a database. If you do have a database, look at cleaning things up so that you can be handling the data and making decisions off of that data, the running list and learning more about your donors, because all our databases tell a story of who our donors are, who our patrons are. So the more that you keep that clean and start making sure that you're using this time to harness that data so that you can use it for the future, it's a great time to do that. Very advanced techniques are analytics. So you can look at implementing analytics if you already have a solid, clean database. If you invest in development structures and processes now, you will be much better prepared to weather the road ahead. Creativity is about connecting the dots and using our existing knowledge base to solve a problem in an inventive new way. But who knows better about connecting the dots than fundraisers? They're primed networking addicts. We look to connect people to their passions. So I know when I first started in fundraising, and even still to this day, people, I have friends or folks that I'll meet that'll say, I don't know how you fundraise. And I don't know how you ask people for money. And my response is always, I don't ask people for money. I connect them with their passion. I connect them with something that they're passionate about. And I help them find their passion. And then as a result, the donation or the sponsorship is a result of them feeling connected to their passion. And so that's something that we need to think about as the root of fundraising is how are you as artists or fundraisers connecting people to their passion of the visual or performing arts or your cultural institution or your gallery? How are you connecting your donors to your art? Because that's what they want. And then if you have an honest and transparent and heartfelt and vulnerable conversation saying, this is what we need for this kind of art to survive, you will be surprised that the two things that donors want to do right now is they want the things that just, I would say the public wants to do is things that are within their control. And two things that are within their control, number one is like crafts and baking. So you're seeing a lot of sourdough bread, a lot of bread making. That's one thing that's within our control is making food. The other thing within our control is donating. And so it is a great time to talk about impact and connecting people with your mission. Let this intermission be a time to utilize our connective energy to bring together new ideas and next practices during this time. At BWF, we talk a lot about not just best practices, but next practices. What is the future of our field? Where are we heading? And that's one thing we like to specialize in is trying to forecast and see where is our sector, where is fundraising heading. This intermission also allows you to collaborate with your marketing, your communications team, or maybe it's one person, maybe it's a contract PR company that you work with, but collaborate to redefine what digital engagement and stewardship looks like with your donors and with your audiences. So marketing communications and PR folks have great ideas, but look at it from a fundraising angle. Always look at it in the angle of how can we connect people with our mission and encourage a donation. Look at streamlining prospect development pipeline. So a lot of really, larger shops will have a whole pipeline for how they're in a system for how they're managing their donors. Start looking at that from a small aspect. How can you look at your your current donors and your potential donors and look at moving them up the ladder and bringing them alongside you? and look at what those portfolios look like. So a portfolio would be a group of maybe it's 10 to 50 donors that you're going to call and get to know. That's a portfolio. So figure out and define who those donors are and take the time to call them and make sure that they're doing okay, and just to touch base and tell them about your art, because they are available and I'm sure they would love to hear from you. Collaborate with your ED to translate the strategic vision, or if you are the ED of your institution, look at taking the time to translate the strategic vision into the fundraising plan. Obviously, things are having to be adapted. I like to say that fundraising plans are made in Jell-O because they're moldable, and so mold your fundraising plan, but have it tie into the strategic vision of your organization. We also, it's an important time for us as artists and fundraising artists to collaborate together as we collectively fight this global pandemic. Fundraisers and artists, we must harness our collective and collaborative energy to share best practices, next practices, challenges, and successes with each other. It's a great time for your organizations, if you have an arts organization, to over collaborate and over communicate with all of your stakeholders, both internal stakeholders like staff members and external stakeholders like your board and volunteers. Over communicate and collaborate. This is the time to come together on this because we are all together. Talk with your, if you have planned giving or are launching planned giving or wanting to launch, think about creative gift solutions. Planned giving is asking folks to include your organization in their will and their bequest plans. Actually, because this is a time that people have been looking to get their affairs in order, there has been a rise in people establishing their wills. And so now is actually a good time, if you feel comfortable and you have a planned giving plan in place, to have those conversations. Some other important things to talk about and other creative giving vehicles are donor advised funds. So if you can look through your database and see who's given to you from a charitable fund, from Greater Houston Community Foundation, from Schwab Charitable, or from Fidelity, these charitable gift funds, that is untapped money that has been sitting there. And so there is a push for people who have money stored in donor advised funds to give them away. Now, a donor advised fund is like a bank account where people are holding their philanthropic dollars, and they've basically been untouched by the market. And so that money is already been spent. They've already been taxed on it. All they have to do is give it away. So that's a huge opportunity as donor advised funds. And we're really encouraging nonprofit organizations to do donor advised funds. And so some other things to do is encourage, if you are the gift processor in your staff, or you have someone that's helping you process gifts, encourage people to talk about creative payment solutions. Maybe you want to go to more monthly sustaining solution, monthly giving, and then utilization of these donor advised funds. I'm encouraging people to utilize them. And then schedule virtual coffee visits with your loyal donors, or just with people that are loyal to your institution, who are loyal to you as an artist, and pair them. If you are the artist yourself, then schedule that time directly with them. If you're a part of a small arts organization, then pair them with a teaching artist, or a curator of a gallery, or a visual artist that is associated with your institution. It could just be that you have an ED and an artistic director, and it's a development person, but make sure that you are scheduling that quality time, getting back to the mission of the institution. And then we must foster and celebrate the creativity of each other as we implement new innovative ideas and techniques in our arts and culture sector. So there's been some amazing content out there with arts organizations, whether it's seeing an artist or an illustrator doing education, online education video content, or you're seeing symphony members do solos, or aquariums, a penguin walking through an aquarium. There's so many opportunities for us to be catalysts for each other's creativity and talk about this in new and inventive ways within our sector, not only in the way that we're providing engaging content, but the way that we're fundraising. So when we're passionate and we talk about innovation, we become catalysts for creativity. So the key is to surround ourselves with innovators who want to change the arts and culture sector the same way that we do. And so strive to come together. And maybe this is your first step of being here at this Fresh Arts webinar, to come together and spur each other on in that creative energy and work with each other to say, what's worked for you? What's worked for your organization? What's worked for you as an artist as you've gotten yourself out there? Is it a virtual painting lesson? Is it just connecting with your donor base? And look at those various ways that you can do that. So I wanted to give some digital fundraising solutions like virtual events to show you some practical ways that you can, these are from small organizations to other arts organizations that you can take with you. So Arts Corp in Seattle is a very small non-for-profit organizations. And what they do is they empower teaching artists and provide access to arts education for students. What they did was a virtual, right after the pandemic. I mean, this was right in March. They actually pivoted, and since Seattle was one of the first hit, they pivoted to a virtual event. This was before quarantine. This was when social distancing was still in place. So you can see, I've included the link in this for their Festa 2020, but there you have their ED in the center. And you see that they're actually in a classroom, and you have like the sanitary wipes at the front. I thought that was very cute, but they continued on with their gala, and they did a bunch of live content. They also put together, some content that was also pre-recorded. Some of the challenge they learned was having to think on their feet, as being one of the first virtual arts events out there. They had to become video producers very quickly and figure out what that looks like. They had to adjust their budget. They got about 1/3 of their goal was met. And so they had to figure going to make up the rest of the goal that we anticipated from this event. They had some trouble with audio. They had trouble getting people together to rehearse with reduced to no rehearsal time. And then they felt that tension of how do we get people to tune in, and then how do we get them to make a gift. They got 120 gifts total. They used BidPal, BIDPAL, as a text to gift feature. And then they repurposed some videos. The opportunities that Arts Corp found is that they were able to engage younger teaching artists to help with the social media outreach during the events. So these teaching artists became advocates for them on their YouTube event. They reached out to those who didn't attend and didn't give with a custom fundraising appeal letter. So those who weren't able to make it, they still approached them. They're planning to roll out a monthly giving. I just think, if we talked more about this is where I think our future needs to head, is monthly giving programs with arts institutions. So that's another topic, but they're using this opportunity to roll that out. They were able to say how their programming is, and then they were able to pivot this arts kit distribution, online storytelling, and being able to tell their donors, this is how we've changed amidst the pandemic, but we're still committed to our mission, and this is what our mission is. The reach is so much broader right now, with people across the country and world tuning in to this virtual event. And they used there's different platforms you have to think about. Are you going to do Facebook Live, or are you going to do YouTube instead? The next virtual event that I just have loved, it's been more of a telethon event example, is Stars in the House with Seth Rudetsky and James Wesley. They're a couple married outside of New York City, and they have put on this Stars in the House. If you don't follow Seth Rudetsky, he is hosts the Sirius XM on Broadway channel. And so here in Houston, I when I was driving in the car, I'd always tune into the Broadway channel, and Seth was the host. But immediately they pivoted they were one of the first on the scene to provide this as a fundraising opportunity for the Actors Fund, which provides direct financial assistance to artists anywhere. And anyone in the entertainment industry, that's where Actors Fund really supports those efforts. It's a great great organization. And so at least they had raised, the last time I checked, they had raised $250,000 in direct financial assistance. This other thing that was really cool, if you look at the top of the screen where it says about us and then auction, they're getting Broadway stars to auction off or donate memorabilia from shows that they starred in. And so on that auction page, it was so interesting. They're using that, and people are bidding on that auction to, purchase dresses they've worn to award shows. It's been really creative. What I love about Stars in the House is that they've gotten matching gifts from celebrities and viewers. And then just beyond me being a huge theater geek, the creativity, and they quickly adapted. They were one of the first on the scene, and they do this twice a day. So all he does, he coordinates the content. He uses a specific program, but he brings in these different stars, and they come, and he does it around a theme. It could be a show. It could be, artists that know each other. It's wonderful. And then in fact, the Rosie O'Donnell show wound up doing a similar event, but it was like a one night only thing. It's been very entertaining. So I encourage you, just at least for the entertainment factor, watch the Actors Fund and see something that you could try to produce. So a couple of things to think about if you're looking to do a virtual event or some of these digital solutions. Have you fundraised to date for support for sponsors, and has your audience, is it set up to be virtual? So you need to think about if you have corporate support, what are the regional and sector considerations if you are going to do a fundraising event? Do you have sponsors? Have you had sponsors? Have you done a fundraising event before? And if you do, pick up those conversations and have honest conversations with those folks, because regional considerations, for example, here in Houston, the oil prices have made a major impact to corporate support. And so you have to be just sensitive as you're talking to corporate funders. Look at existing donors and ask them to consider 100% tax deductions versus a refund if they were already if you were having an event and you are moving it to a virtual event, or even if you're postponing it, just ask that they make it 100% tax deductible donation. For renewals, encourage people to support and use their donation to support direct services and business continuity and sustainability for your organization instead of wanting it to go to a specific event. And look at this as an opportunity to expand and diversify your donor base and harness your own following of people. So when you need to look at from a sponsor standpoint and then a follower standpoint. Look at your existing base of followers on social media. Do you have a dedicated and active social media following? And then if you're going to expand that by doing an event, who are your target audiences that you want to reach, and which media outlets are you looking at? Instagram, Facebook. How are you going to promote this event, and decide if you're going to do something like Facebook Live or YouTube and broadcast it through your event page. So another good thing to consider if you're looking to do a virtual event is infrastructure. What's the purpose and goal? Create a digital event plan. And what does that success look like? Will it be live? Will it be pre-recorded? Like, think about what those things are. For an event plan, you want multi-channel distribution. You want to, you need a run of show. You need contingency planning. Adjust and refine the content. Look at budget, research, benchmarking for other similar events. Look at staffing. Is it going to be volunteer staffed? Are you going to do crowdfunding? Are you going to have volunteers help you with crowdfunding? Determine staffing in-house versus outsourcing with digital fundraising. Technology. Do you have a reliable digital fundraising partner, or do you have a live or text to give donation software? Are you going to is there going to be interaction? Like, I attended an event on Saturday in my living room that had like a fund a need, and it was an interactive thing where you donated and then they said your name on the TV screen. So, well, it was on YouTube, but we put it on our TV screen. So is there going to be a digital donor wall like that? And then you have to consider, what are your Wi-Fi capabilities? And then production assets, look at videos existing that they haven't seen before, new live video and versus pre-recorded. How are you going to balance the evening? The cadence of the pre-recorded content versus live video, sound quality. Make sure if you can have a dress rehearsal, you have one, and have the chat feature, create community within it. Look at the program from your plan to determine keynotes, award presentations, entertainment. Is there going to be a music component, celebrity appearances from an artist, videos? There's a lot of things to consider. And then think about a virtual auction. So I think before you decide to do a virtual event, say that you've done a fundraiser, you need to think about all of these considerations on how it's going to be carried out. Now, some other ideas that do not digital solutions, fundraising ideas include things like crowdfunding. So determine additional fundraising efforts to make up the difference. If you decide to do an event and then you don't make goal, what other fundraising efforts are you going to do? Use it as an opportunity to combine special events within the organization, or try a collaborative event with a partner organization. So you might think about like fundraising together with another organization. Base your decision on your fiscal year needs and your cash flow. Will you allow vendors to defer? Will vendors that you work with allow you to defer their expenses to a new date if you postpone it? Contract stipulations, force majeure. If you cancel, like, make sure your contracts are airtight. That if there is a force majeure, that you just want to make sure that you have those clauses in your contract so that you can adapt. Streaming, look at rights to songs, and then also event timing. So peer-to-peer and crowdfunding, that was great. There's some wonderful crowdfunding opportunities. So peer-to-peer fundraising is a social, team, and personal fundraising methods in which you get supporters collectively together to fundraise. And so I think it's important to think about that as an option for your institution. So you can look at as an opportunity there. And then here you also see the opportunity of what crowdfunding is, which is a fundraising strategy used to rally fundraisers around a certain cause. So this might be actually a better option for you, is peer-to-peer fundraising crowdfunding. Another opportunity is a giving day, like having a particular giving day. It doesn't have to be around Giving Tuesday, which just, as you know, passed. We have another Giving Tuesday that's usually in November, but you can create a giving day by yourself for your institution. And it's just a 24-hour period where you rally folks around a sense of urgency for your institution. So that is another option. Universities do this all the time. Other organizations will do it. Think about like a giving day. And then you just have infrastructure. What are the resources that you want to invest in now to prepare you for the road ahead? So here's some resources that tie back to the presentation. So if you need some examples, I see an awesome example of a local artist crowdfunding project that was just posted in the comments. So you can see Hubbub has an excellent resource for overall considerations of fundraising. Peer-to-peer options, you have donor source, and then there's another crowdfunding options for nonprofits you can see there. And then Giving Days, these are really two great examples. Red Cross, you can take something and adapt it to you, but American for the Arts has really great examples for Giving Days for arts organizations. I also wanted to share some free fundraising resources. I teach at Rice, I teach fundraising relations, donor relations, and then donor fundraising analytics. And so they have these open opportunities of free webinars and at the Glasscock School. So go to that Open Rice website because it's really a wealth of information on fundraising and philanthropy. And then BWF, where I work, we have a lot of resources that we've been pumping out. We have free webinars, lots of free webinars on fundraising. My white paper is there, as well as many other articles on fundraising, anything from how do I work with a board member, how do I message during this time. So, it's really a wealth of information. If you go to BWF current resources, you will see all of our it's all COVID related resources. So now it's time for the Q&A. I wanted to sort of open it up. Thank you so much for listening, but open it up to questions. And then we can go through these Q&A questions if that's of interest as well.
All right. Thank you so much for that information, Amy. Thank you for all of the great slides and the leads on different resources available online. So we don't have too much time left, but I'm going to go through the viewer questions first, and then I'll ask some questions just from me, just to clarify some points or to provide some more insight. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Awesome. So we have a question from a viewer, Risma Pleasant. What are some things that will work for small nonprofits? And I think you kind of stated some points on how small nonprofits can use, and you provided some examples from small nonprofits. But is there some maybe some particular pointers or particular advice or information you give to small nonprofits who have a smaller network?
Absolutely. In fact, I was just on the phone with a small nonprofit out of Dallas, an arts nonprofit, and this morning. And one thing that I advise them is they have about 150 donors that give monthly to them, and they consider them major donors, but they give monthly to the institution over time. And what I encourage is that the ED, the artistic director, and the director of development, that they would divide their donor base between the three of them and call each of their donors right now. That's something that small organizations always have had an advantage over large organizations, is that you have a funding base that is obtainable, that you can get to know each one of your donors individually and be able to talk to them during this time and let them know where your needs are, but really just check in with them. I mean, right now we're in what I call a donor relations renaissance. Everybody is home. They want to talk to you. So it's just picking up the phone and talking with them. And then based on your fiscal year, it is okay to solicit them. Look, if you've done direct mail before, like sent a solicitation in the mail, then I would continue doing that. I've seen some studies that just now, the last week of April and the first 2 weeks of May, direct mail has hit. And with arts organizations, people have been just as responsive as they have been in years past. So use this opportunity to solicit if you need to for your organization. And look at online solicitations, push out content. I mean, you can look once a week, probably pushing out an email to your base that has combined content, not only maybe a video or an artist sharing a video or a teaching artist or a student sharing a video, as well as maybe archived content that you have as an arts organization. Pair that with always have a donation button and an opportunity to give, telling donors what you're doing right now to still uphold your mission while we can't meet. So that's, planning out that kind of content digitally, sending out emails, figuring out how are you going to message to your donors socially, but also through email, and then other channels through direct mail if possible.
Thank you. We have another viewer question from Alyssa McCain. They ask, how do you identify donor-advised funds?
So that's a great question. What you would want to do is, if you had received the donation and it came in, what the donation looks like is it will say their name and that it's from a charitable fund. And so if you have the check copies and you can see that it's a charitable fund, sometimes the check will come from Fidelity, sometimes it will come from Schwab or Greater Houston Community Foundation, but it will list, and many times the donors will disclose that it came from their particular fund at these institutions. It may almost look like a bank check, but it's actually a check for their donor advised fund, and it will have something in the title that maybe looks like the name, their family name, charitable fund, or it may just be their name and fund. Sometimes people are putting the name foundation in there, and they will have their foundation, their family foundation, run within a donor advised fund. So usually you can see it from the check that you receive it, and then looking through your database to see if that was tracked, and to look at those charitable fund, anything that says fund in it, that's the person's name and the foundation. There's an opportunity there of talking to those individuals to seeing if they will give through a donor advised fund. It's also a good question just to ask your donors. Maybe they didn't give to a donor advised fund, but they would want to give you a donation from their fund if they had one. So that's just that would be a question to ask them.
Thank you. We have a question from Keely Steenson. They ask, can you recommend some monthly donation online software?
Yes, monthly donation online software. I think there's a couple of, it depends on what you want to do with your, there's a couple of great groups that do online donations, like One Cause is a good group to look at for donations. Mobile Cause is also a good group, because if you wanted to transition into text to give, you could go with them. But I think you might want to look at One Cause. They're also like a bidding software, so they do online solutions as well as if you needed to. I would encourage you to work with someone that you could transition and do other online solutions with. So One Cause is the name.
Thank you. And we have another viewer question. They asked kind of a two-parter, or rather like a follow-up to their own, but so I'm going to ask both and then answer however you wish. This is from Aisha Ashley Abasi. Can you share some practical advice for how you can begin a transparent and vulnerable conversation with potential donors, not current ones? And the follow-up is, or how you might transition from a normal conversation to solicit and express your needs?
That's a great question. It really, fundraising, the art of it is the art of conversation. The vulnerable, you don't have to, when you're transparent and you have that vulnerable conversation with a potential donor, it's really starting with, why do they love your organization? What was their first, how long have they been involved, and why do they love your organization? It's connecting it with the art. And then through the conversation, asking them, how are you doing during these days, and learning more about them, like it's a conversation with a friend. And then transitioning into, well, this is what we've been going through as an institution. It's really been hard for us because we can't convene, we can't meet, depending on what your art form is. If you're a symphony or a chorale or, a theater, or if you're a visual artist, be transparent about what you've been going through. And then that we're really leaning on donors to help us during this time. Could we count on your support? If you feel comfortable, I think a good thing would be to define what that need is when you're going into the conversation. Because a lot of times they'll say, well, how can I help? And if you have a cheat sheet with you to say, for $50, this would help us. $50 helps us do this. $100 helps us to do this. $200, $1,000 helps us do this. So as you're identifying these potential donors, that's a great, if it's tangible and they know that they can make an impact, they could do something immediately to help you. Those are really wonderful conversations that are happening right now. And I would definitely define before you go into a potential donor meeting, know what their potential is. So is there what's the gift amount that you want them to ask, and just make sure that you have enough research around you to understand that. But you can make it, it's really, with them taking your call, they're going to want to know how they can help.
Thank you. So we do have some other viewer questions, but they're related to the presentation of this workshop. So I'll get to that as soon as I can ask some other questions while we still have Amy online. And so we have a few minutes left. We have about 6 or so minutes left with you. So I'm going to ask some questions. Maybe they seem really rudimentary, but just to kind of lay some ground rules for some of the language you've used. So for example, what really is the difference between individuals and corporate donors, right? So is it would you say it's priorities, messaging, and how you speak to them?
Yeah, I always view as corporate foundation donors are all people. So there's always people behind those donations and those sponsorships. So you need to treat them just like you would treat individual donors, because really it's all individual donors. You're dealing with the individuals. So when you're talking to a corporate funder, try to get a meeting first with them, just a call, and ask them how they're doing. How's their foundation, personally? Are they all meeting? Are they still all working remotely? And how's their foundation? A lot of times these foundations have rolling averages, and so they haven't felt the hit yet. So it's talking to them about your case for support. For corporate donors, like I mentioned earlier, just think of regional considerations. So just do a little bit of Google research of make sure you're going on the corporate website and looking, did they just furlough a whole bunch of staff? What are some of the things that would make them tick, that would, whenever I talk to corporations, it's about partnership and what they really are interested. Is it visibility? Is it employee engagement? So meet them halfway and talk to them about how you can connect their institution with your organization.
Great. And then kind of perhaps a follow-up to that. So where do you even start, right? To approach donors, you gave some pointers, but in regards to, let's say a fund or a corporate donors, do you just contact a particular person? Do you is there usually a point person that you, or a title that one should look out for? Whether it be.
Yeah, if you're looking at corporate relations, I would shy away from corporate relations right now, just because of the market. Your gold mine is your own base of donors right now. So previous ticket buyers, gallery, ticket buyers that can convert to donors, because you don't have to state the case of actually who you are. Because a lot of these organizations are cutting back and just supporting the people they've already supported and know. So it might be more of an uphill battle to go. So look at your current corporate funders, current foundations, ask for their sustainable support, additional support. But look at your base. Your base is the gold mine. So look at your previous donors, people who haven't renewed again. to your institution, individuals. A lot of institutions, individual giving could make up, 80% of your revenue, your contributed revenue. So it makes, if you're looking at managing your time, focus on the individuals, and then look at the institutions. But I would start with local Houston funders, only local, and then maybe look at corporations too. But I've seen people shy away from corporate funding and focus more on foundations and then their base of individuals.
Thank you. Very helpful. Could you also maybe provide any insight on any donor response to online digital efforts, and like how do you communicate that to donors? So like, for example, I think we're really used to having like the language of like, oh, we're doing this in person or having this in person, but now it's like everything is online digital, and maybe hopefully that doesn't get lost.
Yeah, I think there's an arts organization in Canada, and I remember their marketing now ED said, I just put it where they're going to step in it. I put it everywhere where they could possibly step in it, and that just really resonated with me. So when you if it's a donor, you're going to want to spread it widely, but be very strategic. So social media. What platforms are you using? Are you doing LinkedIn? Facebook has the highest adoption rate and the largest base. So you shouldn't exclude Facebook, but are you on Instagram? Where's your current presence and where do you need to expand that? And then online, look at maybe weekly emails to your base. So the whole point is to keep you to top of mind as an institution. You want to be one of your donors' top 3 priorities. And so the more that you engage with them right now, the more that they're going to want to engage with you in the future and when it's time to solicit them. So emails, you can't go wrong with emails, phone calls, direct mail pieces, social media. And then if you've done text to give, think about that as well. But I think there's a really great point just to dovetail on that I see in the comments of engaging older donors. I mean, the largest sector on Facebook right now is older donors. And so Facebook is actually a great place to engage. I mean, my 90-year-old grandmother's on Facebook. So engage with them online. Use an opportunity. Phone is a great way to engage with older donors right now. I guess it just depends on how old you're talking about. But I mean, there's phone. You can't go wrong with phone. If you wanted to FaceTime, I've seen some FaceTime. We were able to get my 90-year-old grandmother onto Zoom with all of us together on Easter. So it's possible to walk them through that if you wanted to have face-to-face. But you can't go wrong with phone calls and emails for older donors and Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you for preempting that. I'm going to ask you maybe one more question, and then we can say our goodbyes, or you can give us some links or whatever. So like, what information should an artist or an organization have ready when, let's say, asking for funds or speaking to their donors? So should they have like data? Like, should they say like, oh, we've done this and that, or should they have like a research, some numbers ready from their engagements? Or
I actually, infographics are just awesome. I think it would, and people don't have time to read a whole bunch of stuff right now. They're probably trying to declutter their inbox. But I think an infographic is huge. You can have it sent by mail, but then also look at making it digital. An infographic is what we call if you're doing infographics, guess what? You're doing analytics. Infographics, it's called data visualization. And yes, that shows very quickly and easily the impact of their gift. So look at putting together a 1-page infographic of, these are the people we've served. This is what we've done, how we're pivoting, and you can send it by PDF. And then you can send it on all the different channels. But yeah, I think infographics are awesome. They tell a story very easily.
Awesome. And do you mind just taking one more question from a viewer?
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So final question. I don't know if you addressed this. My apologies. Aisha Ashley Abbasi asks, what do you do when you meet someone in another setting, social, by coincidence, etc., who may have the potential to help you in your fundraising efforts through their work, their contacts, or their wisdom?
I think it's it's called, we call it like a qualification, identification stage when we talk about prospecting. So a lot of these are great questions about prospect development. And so what you want to do is you want to qualify that lead. And so just sit down and talk to them. Talk about, do they, what do they like what would they like about your institution? Do they like giving to other institutions? Would they like more information about your institution? Because would they like to spread the word about your institution? And then, I like to really engage donors and volunteers the same way that you would staff. Different volunteers have different strengths and weaknesses. Some of them would rather give, but some of them, their value is that they would like to share, and they have a really great social following and they will like to advocate for you. Others would like to give you free vendor services. So I think maximize the potential based on the conversation. Are they a donor? Would they want to spread the word about your institution? Do they have services that they would like to provide that they could provide for free? And so it's all about that arc of conversation and to get to that end goal. The good thing is that if you know that they've already donated, you know that they have an affinity to donate. So anyway, but yeah, I think it's just further defining their best suited interest in your organization.
Thank you. All right. It seems like we have some other questions, but again, out of respect for your time, we're going to kind of end it there. And if you have other questions, we'll be sure to address them later in our comments. But Amy, thank you so much for the information. Could you maybe provide some links or say some links out loud where people can follow you or your organization or your efforts?
Absolutely. My info, that's my direct phone number here in Houston. And then there's my email. So feel free to reach out. Email is probably the best, but please feel free to reach out if you have any further questions, fundraising information. We're just, on behalf of BWF, we're just happy to provide this resource for arts organizations in Houston. You are vital to our artistic economy here in Houston. And so it's so important that we all come together and support each other during this time. So I'm just more than happy to have helped. Hopefully you found it as helpful.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for all this great information. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you're all right. Hope everything is safe and well with you. But again, thank you so much, Amy. Thank you for the information.
Happy to help. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
I'll see you around.
Bye.
All right, so there you have it. I think there were some really great pointers in there, particularly if you haven't done fundraising to even more experienced fundraisers. And so I think a really great mix of information there. I know it's something I've been afraid to do, but I think now I have some information ready. So again, thank you for joining us for Fundraising the Arts During Times of Crisis with Amy Lampi. Thank you for your questions, viewers. So just for the future, so this coming Tuesday, you're going to get, again, another edition of Resource Roundups with me, Reyes, where I go through resources. And I think there were some questions regarding like how we do our presentations and how does one present information. So, now that we've got some questions regarding that, I'll be sure to provide some pointers your way, throw some digital platforms for you in there. But just for clarification, the one we're using now, we're using StreamYard. So definitely check that out. I know, in fact, my colleague that is behind the scenes, Angela, she loves StreamYard. It's been really easy for her to use. There's different levels of what you pay for, or there's a free version, but definitely check that out. But I'll be sure to give other platforms this coming Tuesday for the resource roundup to address some of these questions. But we also have some video. We have a video with Medley Inc. with Ashley Small, who addresses some of these platforms, their benefits, their pros and cons, and some other resources regarding that. And you can always watch our archive of videos on YouTube, on Facebook Live, and especially at our website, fresharts.org. And there is the link right there. Thank you, Angela. And also there's a link in the comments right there. Thanks again, Angela. So definitely check those out if you still have some lingering questions on digital platforms. But again, I'll be sure this Tuesday to throw some your way. Probably take some pointers from Ashley Small, who's way more qualified to say anything about that than I ever could be. So definitely check that out, watch those, watch our archives. If this is your first time tuning in, there's already been some topics that have been covered that have been brought up in the comments. So yeah, we're on top of it. We're trying to be on top of it. So hopefully you can watch those and get some really great information from what we've done before. So again, thank you for tuning in. Some other information regarding what we do. So fresharts.org. You can visit our resource library, which is right here, posted right under my chin. And there you can get some resources, business resources, toolkits, webinars. You can also submit questions, concerns, topics that you would like for us to cover through a form that we have online on our website on our resource page. So definitely submit to us your events, your concerns, maybe some topics you want for us to cover. So please let us know. We'll be more than happy to address those questions and hopefully provide some answers. So again, there you go. So you can either contact me, reyes@fresharts.org, or you can go to this link right there, right next to my name, Share with Fresh Arts, to let us know. So again, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you found our resources and our workshops useful thus far. And if you really like those resources, if you like the things that we're providing, then join our squad. You can become a friend of Fresh Arts to support our webinars and resources, and there's a link down there. So if you were able to, please throw some cash our way so that we can, again, continue to provide these really great resources to as many people as possible. We want to help creatives. We want to help artists in Houston and beyond. So please, that's what we've always been passionate about, and that's what we want to continue being passionate about, to give you this great information. So become a friend of Fresh Arts, please, if you can. So this Tuesday, tune in again. Next Thursday, we'll have another great conversation or topic for you. So again, be safe, be well, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.